Now in this video we're going to take a look at creating long shadows. Now there are a number of different techniques for creating this effect. It's very popular right now, especially with all the flat design that's going on. And there's a number of different ways to do it, both in Photoshop and Illustrator. Now we're going to do it here in Photoshop using 3D. Now you may have seen this effect done in 3D, but probably not in the way I'm going to be doing it. Now I've seen a lot of people use 3D, actually use the lights and the shadow to create that long shadow effect, but it still has the dimension and some lighting and some hotspot areas. Here we're going to do it using 3D, but a very different way. So we're going to do it in two different ways. I'm actually going to apply it to a graphic element and also to a text element, just so you can see the different way the effect plays around and how it works a little bit differently for each one. So I've got a document here already created with the color background already set, and I'm going to go ahead and do this first with a shape. Now go in the options bar, or rather the toolbar here, and let's go into the shape tools and go ahead and select the custom shape tool. Now I'm going to go up at the options bar here and let's go into the shape menu here, and this is where all the shape presets live. So you can go into this little menu, as I've said before, and go ahead and choose all, and it allows you to see all the preset shapes that are available here inside Photoshop, as well as any ones you've defined as your own. But what I'm looking for here in this case is a specific shape, which is this one right here, this fleur-de-lis shape. Now I want to go ahead and set my fill color to white, so we'll go ahead and do that, and the stroke color to none. That's fine. I'm going to go ahead and apply this as a shape layer, of course, so let's go ahead and make sure shape is selected there. And I'm going to hold down the Shift key and just drag down and go ahead and apply that shape to the image. Now I'm going to go ahead and center this in the canvas. There we go. So there's my shape created on its own layer. So now I'm going to go ahead and make this a 3D object by going into the 3D menu and choosing new 3D extrusion from selected path. Now, as I said before, I've seen a lot of people do this effect by utilizing the shadow and lights that are created when you create a 3D object. But again, my approach is going to be a little bit different than that. So first, I'm going to go to that environment property and go to the ground plane settings here in the properties panel. And you want to make sure you have the 3D and properties panel open when you're editing 3D like this. So with the environment property selected, I'm going to go to the ground plane settings here and just drop the opacity to 0, and that will get rid of that shadow. So I'm going to select the shape 1 element here in the 3D panel, and we're going to go over to the properties panel and click on this second tab at the top up here, and that's going to allow you to access the deform properties. Now what I want to do is first extend the extrusion to the max amount, which is 2500 pixels. But then I'm also going to go down here where it says bend and shear right here at the bottom. Go ahead and activate shear, and let's just move the horizontal X, and you'll see that it bends the object, or bends the extrusion along that axis area. And this, basically, if we go all the way around, it'll bring it around to the front. So that basically we're looking at the back face of that object, and then swing it around that way. So we can swing that object around. But what I want to do is turn this until it's just short of coming in front of the shape there, just like there. And then if I go ahead and manipulate this vertical setting here, you can see it adjust that a little bit, but let's bring this down a little bit more right about there. Because typically the long shadows are going at about a 45-degree angle there. So the angle looks good and everything else, but however, it still looks like a 3D object because we can see all the shading and the various definitions of the shape here, and I don't want to see that. I need it to be a flat, solid shape. So in order to do that, I'm going to go to the scene, select scene here in the 3D panel, and then jump over to the properties panel, and in this presets menu, I'm going to go over here and choose unlit texture. And there you can see it removes all that shading, it just leaves the shape itself. Now it's at its default gray, which is the default fill for a extrusion on a 3D object. But let's go ahead and change that color. So I'm going to go ahead and select shape 1 extrusion here in the 3D panel. And then we're going to go up to the diffuse property, and you can see there is that gray swatch that it's assigned right now. Well, let's go ahead and click on that swatch and open up the color picker. Now I'm going to go ahead and use the eyedropper and go ahead and select that green background of the original document. And it goes ahead and makes that fill that color. But it blends in because so we can't see it. So instead of looking for a different shade of that color, you can actually go to this intensity slider right here and just dial it down a little bit, and it'll make the color darker, but keep it in the same family. And that's it. So I'm going to click OK. So now I've got my long shadow. So now if I want to change it, I can just go back to that shear property and just adjust its positioning just by maneuvering these two sliders around. And so once I have it in a place where I like it, then there I have my long shadow on my object, and it doesn't have any of the shading or anything like that because it's an unlit 3D texture. Pretty cool. Now let's go ahead and do it to text, just so you can see. It's a little bit different depending on the type of object that you create in 3D. The sliders are going to behave a little bit differently, so I just want to make sure you know that, just depending on what you create. So on the text, we'll just go through the same procedure, but this time I'm going to choose New 3D Extrusion from Selected Layer instead of the path. And I'm going to go ahead right to Scene and just go ahead and make this an unlit texture. And let's go ahead and again select that extrusion material, and let's change the color. Again, I'm going to select that green color, or sample that green color, and then just dial the intensity down a little bit. There we go. And then let's make sure we have the main object selected, and then go into the deform properties, again in the properties panel. Let's extend the extrusion to its full depth there, and we'll just slide this over. Make sure you have shear turned on. There we go. And we'll just bend this element there, and then bend the Y factor here a little bit. And then there we go. Oh, there we go. So there it is on text. So it's really quickly and easily. It's using 3D, but it's not necessarily giving you 3D as a result. It's just kind of faking it. But it is using the 3D information there to create a realistic 3D long shadow. So just another quick and easy technique for creating long shadows on your design elements right here inside Photoshop.